Okay, thank you very much for the warm introduction, and thank you very much for the comfortable chairs. We have a nice panel discussion today. Let me tell you a little bit about what's happening at the global level, and then we'll move down to the regional level, and then the national level, and then really get into the grassroots things that are happening at the absolute local level. As you probably have seen on the news over the last few days, we had something like 600,000 people marching across the globe for climate action. There is a climate summit going on in New York at the moment, and there are expected to be significant pledges of actions to finally reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases. Interestingly, in today's news, the Rockefellers, the family that made all of their money out of oil, have agreed to divest all of their investments from fossil fuels and put it into renewable energy. Very significant when big companies and funding organizations say the time of fossil fuels is over. And so I think we are on the cusp of very significant changes. We had a visit last week from one of the organizers of the Green Climate Fund, which is a new fund established to provide financing for both mitigation and adaptation. It'll be based in Korea. They're seeking pledges initially of $15 billion to start their activities, and half of that will go to adaptation, and countries will actually have direct access to that financing. So USAID Adapt Asia Pacific project, for which I'm acting as one of the two team leaders, is trying to help developing countries in Asia and the Pacific, I think 27 countries currently, to access climate change finance for adaptation activities. And so as we think about going from the global level and all these sort of high-level discussions that are going on and all the sort of theoretical discussions that are going on, how do we go from those global developments right down to the grassroots actions at community forestry level? And how do we make sure that there is vertical integration between these high-level developments and the local level? And so we will hear about that. And the key word to me in today's discussion is innovative ideas. And so we're looking for innovative ideas. We heard, for example, that payment for ecosystem services might be one approach to look at more closely. I'm particularly interested in the idea of debt for nature swaps or debt for climate change swaps, because I think indebted countries may be able to trade off some of their outstanding debts for actions in relation to climate change. So without further ado, we will get into our discussion. We're going to give each of the panelists 5 to 6 minutes to cover some prearranged questions, and I know they're very nervous about being able to answer those questions in 5 or 6 minutes, but nevertheless, I believe that if you've got a good idea, you can generally express it concisely. Our first speaker, which probably needs no introduction, but nevertheless, let me introduce her, is Doris. And oops, I lost my flower. Um, and we share something in common, as we both come from the Philippines. Although I don't look like a Filipino, I lived there for 15 years, so I feel at least partly Filipino. She is a senior fellow, was a senior fellow of CIRCA, and has served in various capacities in C4, Ford Foundation, the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, and Wageningen University in the Netherlands. And she's currently the chair of the Rekoft Board of Trustees. So I think with her vast regional and international experience, she is the ideal person to answer some questions on how do we address this issue of adaptation at the broader regional level.
Thank you so much, Peter, my compatriot. And good morning, all of you. First, let me pay my respects to Dr. Somsak, Director General of Thai Royal Force Department, Mr. Tirapat Prayurasidi, and Executive Director Dr. Tintang, colleagues. I have two questions, and just to give you an idea of what I would be talking about, Peter has asked me to talk about whether and to what extent community forestry, which is a very localized set of actions and activities, really do matter at the regional level, national and regional level, in terms of climate change adaptation and mitigation. And also, I have been asked to touch upon some of the mechanisms within the region that would contribute to adaptation at a larger scale. But if I might take some liberty, I hope that you would allow me a little bit of time to also respond to some of the points that Dr. Somsak raised in his speech. First, the question of whether community forestry remains relevant. And the resounding question is yes. And it is relevant more so now than ever before. And the reason for that is that increasingly the scientific evidence and experience, many of them anecdotal, but science is catching up, shows very clearly that where local people, local communities are involved in not only implementing but making decisions about how forests are managed, forests tend to be better managed by all ecological indicators: quality, diversity, long-term sustainability, as well as the more socially oriented indicators, distribution of benefits, reduction of conflict, etc. This is not particularly new. We've known this for a long time. The experience with community forestry, called in whatever form or shape or name, social forestry, joint forest management, etc., has been very clear. Where the conditions are right for people to actually be effectively involved in making decisions about what species, how to manage, whether and how to control fire or use them, these have tended to be rather effective compared to, let's say, government-protected or large-scale forest conservation, forested areas. So the evidence is clear. And what is innovative is that now governments are finally waking up. And what is new is that they are getting a lot of respectability, not only within countries, but increasingly globally as well. And within ASEAN, there are mechanisms to share lessons. And one of those is the ASEAN Social Forestry Network, which brings together high-level policymakers involved in community forestry and community forestry implementation. So that's one aspect. If you look at where forests are effectively protected, normally you would see them mapped against where tribal populations concentrate, where indigenous communities have had, a share and, effective de facto control over forests, and also where they are highly dependent on forests for their livelihoods. In other words, they are effective agents because there is a need and there is an opportunity. And in many cases, even if their rights are not formal, they are for the most part left alone. And the only problem is when the territories become very attractive for mining or large-scale logging or other forms of conservation that are not necessarily based on community forestry. The evidence is clear. The other point I'd like to make is where communities have been protecting forests, or where forests are actually very rich, sadly, that's also where the people are the most poor. So you have poor people, very rich resources. This tends to be a pattern, sadly, that is repeated not only in Asia but around the world. So what is new and what can we do about it? And what is innovative? Good thing is that the world policymakers are waking up to the role of communities, where in many cases they have been criminalized for their activities of collecting food, fuel, fodder, etc. And now, increasingly, there are proactive programs to support community level efforts. What still needs major support from our part is really to formalize policies that not only allows them to do that, but actively supports their efforts. And along this line, in many of the community forest programs, they tend to be seen as subsistence. In other words, short-term needs for their own consumption, fuel, etc. Much of the policies in the region still do not allow them to commercialize or to add value or to take a step beyond subsistence. I think in some places this needs to be rethought. One of the things perhaps that tend to be a worry is what happens to biodiversity. And that's where I think Dr. Somsak's point about, look, communities are not only there to protect biodiversity spontaneously generated, but they actively shape the nature, the diversity, the composition of forests. And when I worked in India, in South Asia, assisted natural regeneration was a major strategy which really has a lot of role for communities to selectively protect certain species, indigenous species, sometimes over the objection of government policies that prefer certain species to be protected and planted. So I think here is where policies do have, you know, major contributions to make. How can we promote, and the reason why we need communities now more than ever is that, one, they are not only efficient, but they could efficiently exploit microenvironments, small patches that can grow certain species and therefore are able to better protect and nurture biodiversity. If allowed, if provided with incentives, economic incentives to sustain and continue this operation, community forestry can be economically viable. Which brings me now to the point about regions and regional processes. For ASEAN, 2015 will be a seminal year because that is when the ASEAN community comes into being. One production base and one consumption base. And in my view, community forestry is an unexploited, perhaps underutilized potential where we can, as a region and as individual countries, move towards more inclusive, greener, more sustainable economies based on local livelihoods. And for this to happen, I can talk a little bit about that later. I'm sure our colleagues around the panel would have more to say. It seems to me that, Peter, you were talking about funding, you know, the Green Climate Fund. Within ASEAN, there is a proposal to start and create a fund for community forestry at the regional level. Also a proposal from a number of governments within the ASEAN Social Forestry Network to provide technical support, market development support, etc., and policy support towards this direction. My last point is, I'm mindful that my 5 minutes will soon be up. The last point is one I think personally, and this is a point that perhaps needs further thought, we need to begin to think very seriously about what the private sector will look like into the future. And a private sector with many small community-based actors is probably going to be a viable, more enduring kind of a sector, as opposed to only big industries operating in a playing field that at the moment is stacked against local communities. And we can discuss that a little bit more. So leveling the playing field for the private sector on behalf of and for the benefit of communities, I think should be a high point. There's a lot of innovations already there. They're not allowed to come up to the surface and to see the light of day. Scaling up, I think in this case, is not just replicating many different small efforts and make it large, but really allowing a coverage that is significant enough to then be viable and visible at the national and regional level. And we need this because countries are signatories to international treaties and they need to deliver, make sure carbon is fixed on the ground without local participation, that is not likely to happen. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thank you very much, Doris. I think that sets the scene very nicely. I'd now like to turn to Dr. Komsan Rungwitsakun. Sorry, my pronunciation is not very good. It was interesting, I was asking earlier today how many foresters are turned out from Kasetsart, and it was 300, right, each year. And Dr. Komsan is actually one of them, I believe, who then went on to receive his PhD in botany from Trinity College in Dublin. So he speaks Irish as well. And he's served a number of forestry posts in the Forest Department, and his main area of responsibility now is community forestry planning and community forest management research. And as Doris said, governments are finally waking up. Is the Thai government finally waking up to community forest?
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Komsan Rungwitsakun. It's not your fault to pronounce my surname because it's very, very long and very Chinese surname as well. First of all, I would like to thank RICOP for inviting me to be part of this event and have opportunity to share my knowledge on community forest and their development in Thailand as well. Right now, my main responsibility is focusing on agroforestry implementation in both community forest area and farmland areas. And now we have kind of additional works sponsored by the private sectors. As Dr. Doris mentioned earlier, that we need to have more cooperation from private sector now. RFD, I recall RFD, Royal Forest Department, have been supporting financially from an outstanding private sector. We call Ratchaburi Holding, Electricity Holding Company. Yeah. Respond to your question, definitely RFD, I think, have waken up for a while because of we have our master here. He also was my lecturer, but at the time when I was an undergraduate student, he was actually director of RICOP already. So that's why I have many friends working with RICOP, and we share experience. And we share experience together with my friends, especially Dr. Sulin. He is also my classmate. So we know ourselves very well. And go back to your question now. Under current government, the leader is focusing on agroforestry approach as well. He would like to increase food sources for local community. The method he would like to implement it into community is agroforestry, based on His Majesty the King initiative. We call ปลูกป่า3 อย่างประโยชน์ 4 อย่าง 3 forests 4 benefits. And the last benefit is environmental benefits. If we plant trees, we not only get direct return we also get indirect return, which is environmental services. So that's why. And one of the methods we use, we not only looking for conventional forestry method, and now we use community forestry approach as well. Currently, as Mr. DG declare about how many community forests we are at the moment, we have about 9,000 community forests covering an area about nearly 600,000 hectares. It's huge, but very small in comparison with state-owned forest. I mean natural forest, sorry. But with about only 15 or 16 years of our contribution to develop community forestry, if you can calculate the number of the communities registered as community forest, you will see the huge growth of community forestry in Thailand. But unluckily, none formal community forest in protected area. But we use a different method and we under limited law to proceed kind of community forest in protected area, as Mr. DG mentioned about PEC as well. So that show and explain what government show our need to have more local local participation in forest activities, as well as Mr. DG mentioned about I can remember clearly a week ago. We were in discussion about the law in relation to community forest activity as well. I guess we will come up and we'll get kind of new mechanism to drive a community forestry approach better in the future. If we look at the adaptation, they are all in place already because the locals are first victims. They know how to adapt themselves, but we need, it's IFD, our government side, need to support them what they lack or what they're missing, something like that. Is it my answer? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for that reassuring answer that the government is very active, and it's a revelation to me to know that there are 9,000 community forests and 600,000 hectares. That's quite significant even in the context of the larger forest area for Thailand. You mentioned your classmate, and so I think now would be a good time to introduce Ajahn Surin Ompron, who also, of course, graduated from Kasetsart, so continuing the long line of graduates from here. And then he actually did his doctoral study in human geography at the University of Sydney in Australia. So we share something in common in terms of the Australian connection. He's been involved in community forestry since 1997, and his current research interests are focused on forest resource governance, rural livelihoods, and the politics of climate change in Thailand and the wider Asian context. So I would like to hear from you a little about how you see climate change adaptation and community forestry coming together.
Okay,
Thank you, Peter. And that's good question and very, very difficult. But first of all, I'd like to thank Rico for inviting me to join this panel. And I would particularly thank Ajahn Somsak Sukwong for continue support the community first in Thailand and also in the region. Ajahn Somsak's work has really inspired me to work in the field of community forestry in order to raise the voice of forest community, particularly the forest poor in Thailand. ขอบคุณมากๆนะครับอาจารย์ Okay, I've been asked to talk in many 2 or 3 issues regarding to the concerning the adaptation and the community forestry by Rikov, but due to the time limitation, I think in this morning I will only address one or 2 issues that are concerning the role of higher education and research in enhancing the adaptation. And I will try my best to address the question by Peter that how the community forestry and adaptation come together, but not sure that I can answer your question, Peter. Sorry, in the first phase. Okay, and a lot of notes here. I think the integration of the climate change adaptation into higher education curriculum is challenging to implement. And my today's argument is that in the context of climate change, the university can play a central role in fostering an intellectual leadership resource for enhancing adaptive capacity for society and also for forest community, particularly the forest poor. In Thailand, there are several study programs that are tackling components of climate change, mitigation and adaptation, but they are not sufficiently challenge information and working together to leverage resource and opportunity. That is my argument for this morning. And when I got a call from Peter Lonakorn and asked me to join this panel, I did a quick assessment, not a systematic way of assessment, but very quick. I look at the study program at different levels, and I focusing on the Mahidol, Chulalongkorn, and also the King Mongkut University. And my goal is to look at whether those universities, to what extent they address the subject of the climate change and the adaptation. And to that assessment, as I told you, it's very quick and systematic assessment. It's just like it's my own interest. And I found that the climate change and its impact is being taught in many in those universities by different study programs. Mainly the subject is delivered at postgrad program. At Mahidol University, for example, the subject climate change and its impacts, and they use this subject being taught in the master program in environmental technology. While at the King Mongkut University of Technology, the subject climate change and the ecosystem being taught in the doctorate program in environmental technology. So this is showing that university in Thailand is aware of the impacts of the climate change and see how to dealing with those, how to deal with that issue at the education program or study program. But the subject of the by my assessment, only 3 universities, I found that the subject of community adaptation to climate change rarely addressed by university curriculum. There are no subject talking about the community adaptation. Yes, but they as I told you that many of them teaching in the impacts of the climate change, but not the adaptation. The question is why our curriculum not paying attention to the community adaptation to climate change. Why? I think there are many factors involved, like the university policy, our commitment of our boss or leaders, and also so many factors involved. But from my point of view, the major constant would be the mismatch between a traditional university setting and nature of the climate change adaptation. The mismatch thing, I think. By nature, adaptation to climate change is holistic and the interdisciplinary, and depends on concept and analytical tool from variety of the disciplines. And as a result, adaptation is difficult to teach in the traditional school setting, where studies are divided and taught in a discipline framework. For example, in Kasetsart University, we are having the faculty of fishery, we are having the faculty of forestry, the faculty of environmental studies. I'm not sure the English name, but we are like separately and working separately, teaching separately. So like when we come to the subject on the adaptation is by nature, as I told you, is quite more interdisciplinary. So like where the place to teach this subject? Who gonna be like the leader to teach that? So like if we like to teach the kind of subject, we need to like create more one office to and then create like, and it's pretty hard to like to engage into that the traditional setting. That require more disciplinary setting. But in my opinion, for the student and the student in the natural resources, the field of study should pay more attention, or another way to allow that our curriculum should pay more attention to the subject on the community adaptation, because from my point of view, adaptation is not about the issue of technical issue, or not about the matter of the how can we say the infrastructure improvement. Like if we like to support the adaptation of the local community, like forester may think about only the like building the check dam, providing them with the seedling nursery, and building kind of like think only about the infrastructure things. But from my point of view, like it's adaptation to the climate change is a matter of the governance. Like in particular in Thailand, where the resort and access to the resort of the local people is unclear, and how can we say restricted by the national law or forestry law. So like we have to like to clarify and make the tenure rights more clear, and in order to support the adaptation of the local community. And so like that's why we need our students or need to learn and have to skill and knowledge on this issue as well. Otherwise, when they graduate and work in the forestry department, and then when they have a chance to work with local community and think about the adaptation, they only like provide them with the check dam and water tank, and also like the nursery. I mean the seedling nursery. So like we need to go beyond this kind of the old thinking and idea. Okay, that, and one more small point I'd like to share in this morning, that how to engage more student and also like more researcher, or how to engage more university in this subject. It's quite easy, like it's very important. Or another way, like how to integrate out the adaptation of the local community into our existing curriculum. And last week, I told my student that Recovery organized this event, and some of them pop up today, only one or two. but I think like a free public forum like this is quite relevant and important in order to like engage our students. But if we like to engage them more, we need to do more. Not only about the public forum like this, we need, because of our students very busy, and they go to the class, like attend the class like from sometimes 7, 8 until 6 in the evening, and they are like very busy for chatting and going to cafe. Where like hundreds of them around campus. If you can see, like it's nearly 100 cafes in Kasetsat University. Like it's a maybe overestimated, but many of them. So like if we like to engage more students in this kind of the public forum, and particular in this topic, we need to think about other ways or the innovative way to engage them. Like we need to think about like digital resources, like to as we realize that in this century, like IT is altering our learning, and also like it's the aspiration of our student or our learners is quite changing. So like we need to provide them with the more interactive, and also like it's the kind of like the self-learning devices. For example, the YouTube or video clip or so on. And also like if we like to engage more researcher or the postgrad student, we need to provide them kind of the incentive. For example, RICOP can set up kind of the, how can we say, scholarship, or not the fund, but scholarship, and provide to our student, and how can we say, encourage the networking among those researchers to share the information and knowledge. Thank you.
I think the answer to your question is free coffee and snacks. Not enough? Okay, our next speaker is Kun Somying Suntawong. I won't say how many years experience she has in rural development, participatory training, natural resource management, and community of forestry, because she would be a little embarrassed, I think, if I said that. But before joining RECOFT in 2004, she worked with Norwegian Save the Children, UNDP in Cambodia, and the Asia Foundation. And now she's the coordinator of the Thailand country program for RECOFT. Thank you.
It's already mentioned about the, regional level and also in the national level. But anyhow, I might be talk a little bit, in terms of the local experience, what's going on. So because of, I think there's a microphone. Because of RECOP also work on the community forest, and in the same time also Thailand program is right now work and focusing on the climate change and focusing on the adaptation, in terms of our research. So that's why I can give you some example, and also can make clear, what the role of the community forest, to the climate change adaptation, if you just go back, or go to the groundwork, in terms of the local community, that is when they talk about the forest. Forest is their life, forest is their adaptive learning process for themselves. So if we link the forest with the community forest, it's quite clear that it's the community forest also is a process, and also is a practice, and adaptation, for the forest management. That is one. So that's why community forest, is very, very linked with the people life, particularly on the rural area. So that's why I think it's a community forest is very, very clear and quite related to the forest governance. That is a one direction that is a make clear that how the people to participate, in the forest management, and we link with the community forest and the forest. That is quite clear that, like Dr. Somsak already mentioned, that is the way of life in the different regions of Thailand. It's the same. The community forest is a part of their life, and also if the forest is very healthy, that is in that food, and livelihoods of the people also healthy and secure enough, yeah, for their life, yeah. Many times the people mention that the people know about the climate change adaptation or not. Dr. Surin mentioned that even the students not clear yet. I think it's for the rural people and the community level, it's very hard for them, yeah, to make clear and understand very clearly on the climate change. But yeah, they have to adapt themselves. It's not only the climate change, it's because of their life. They have to be survived, yeah. So that's why in terms of the food and food security and livelihood, that is the answer for them, yeah. It's not just the climate change, that is one. So that's why I think in terms of the community forest and the people and the local people is very, it's like a, you know, it's like a one package. It's not can separate or somehow like that. If we look on the role of the community forest, yeah, in the climate change adaptation from our research, because of Thailand program work on the research, yeah, in 7 community and try to find out what's going on. It's very clear that the community forest is a like a can contribute, yeah, to the climate change impact risk. Yeah, that is very, very clearly. For example, we have a bad experience in the southern part of Thailand in terms of the tsunami. And it's very clear that the mangrove forest can protect the community very, very well. Yeah, and in terms of the landslide, in terms of the like a coastal erosion, is the same. Yeah, when the people they know how to manage. Yeah, that is one. And the second one, I can see that is the community forest managed well. Yeah, that it seems that make the people more secure in terms of to access their forest product. Yeah, that is mean biodiversity, different kind of species, and like Dr. Komsan mentioned about the agroforest. That is very, very important. That it seems that it secures the food and their livelihood. That is one. Yeah. And the third one, I can see that is the community forest. It's the method, it's the process, yeah, for the forest governance. That is mean that we can use the community forest to assist the local community institution. That is a one very, very important. And in the same time also can increase the level of the like a social capital. Yeah, it's very, very clear. That also from our experience. And the last one, I think this one is not talk much, but I think it's quite important. If we look on the community forest, we did not mean the large scale of the forest. Even the family forest, the agroforest, yeah, the forest is close to the field, the rice field. Also, it's kind of the forest, and this one is like a corridor, yeah, for the biodiversity just expand to that area. So that's why I think it's very important that it's a community forest have to look at the whole picture at the forest landscape and the ecosystem. It's not just only the forest. Yeah, that is one. And in the same time, I think this one also can link, yeah, with the the good practice in Thailand. In fact, yeah, the community forest in Thailand, they have more than 10,000 forests, but the RFD cannot mention about the forest in the protected area. But you see that the people, they expand and they know how they can manage the forest, even in terms of the under the restriction law or somehow like that. Yeah, that is one. For Thailand, it's even the community forest can go very well, but anyhow we have some challenge. Yeah, that is very, very clear on that. In terms of the policy, even right now the RFG also try to promote, yeah, in terms of the agroforest and other kind of the forest. But anyhow, I mean in terms of the recognition and what you call that is like Dr. Surin mentioned about the interdisciplinary, and I think this approach also should work and should include in the community forest, because of the community forest is not right now. It's not only the forester who can, manage and work on that. Even the other subject and other people have to participate on that. And in the same time, I think it's a key issue for Thailand, in terms of the land rights, in terms of the land using. That is quite clear that in Thailand we face, particularly on the local area and the local community, they have to face to the land tenure right. They're insecure. If they're insecure on their land, how they can, invest, for adaptation and other, that's quite difficult. But anyhow, in terms of the process of learning, I can see that the climate change adaptation have to take more time for the community for the community level, because of by practice and by our research, it's very clear that like a Pangyang, he will mention about that. It takes long time, more than 10 years to learn and to understand about the climate change. And then they know about the impact, but did not link well. Not much on that. But anyhow, I think even we have the in terms of the policy level is one thing that I think is very, very important. That one, I mean, in terms of the policy and practice in Thailand, it's not fit together well. For example, right now, if you go to the community level and learn more, you will see that the people in the rural area, they already prepare themselves very well, in terms of the climate change impact risk, And for example, they promote, and they save, and restore their seeds, for the food security, And they also, they have promote root crops in the community forest, And that is seen that, you see that if, compare, with the urban people and the rural, it might be if something happen, I think the rural area can then, they can survive better than us. That is one. It's somehow like this. That I can mention about this. Thank you.
ขอบคุณมากครับ That's interesting that you should say that the rural people perhaps are already adapting and maybe the challenge for the researchers is to find out how they're adapting and then to disseminate that information a little more widely. But it's interesting now that we can go right to the community forestry level, and we're very fortunate to have with us Kun Wacharin Panasan, who's the village chief from Pangyang Community Forest in Changwat Nan, and he's going to tell us about his many years of experience in community forestry on the practical side of managing a community forest, and perhaps some observations on whether they see the climate changing, and if so, are they doing anything about it? Kun Wacharin. And I think Kun Bob is going to help translate. Kun Ron. Okay, thank you.
ครับขอบคุณครับครับผมผู้ใหญ่วัชรินทร์ครับเป็นผู้นำชุมชนบ้านปางยางนะครับอยู่จังหวัดน่านอำเภอปัวนะครับก็ในวันนี้นะครับก็จะมาเล่าถึงกระบวนการที่เกิดขึ้นมานะครับในหมู่บ้าน
My name is Wachalin. I am the local leader of the Pangyang Community Forest from Nan Province.
เกิดขึ้นในหมู่บ้านปางยางนะครับก็จะมีผลกระทบนะครับจากการทำไร่นะครับของชาวบ้านปางยางครับเมื่อสมัยก่อนนะครับในหมู่บ้านปางยางจะมีการทำไร่ หมุนเวียนครับต่อรอบครับ
Well, I'd like to share you the story what happened in the past, especially in terms of the agriculture history of Ban Pang Yang. We have some kind of rotational farming system.
ต่อรอบจากการทำไร่หมุนเวียนครับในระยะ6 ปีถึง 7 ปีครับ
Normally, within one rotation, we talk about 6 to 7 years.
แต่ก็เกิดผลกระทบจากน้ำป่าไหลหลากเข้าหมู่บ้านครับ
We found the evidence of the impact by having flood into our village.
ก็สร้างความเสียหายให้กับหมู่บ้านมีน้ำ
That caused a lot of damage into our people properties.
พัดพากวดหินกวดไม้เข้าทับถมถนนทางเข้าหมู่บ้านครับ
A lot of mud and clays went through our village.
เมื่อเกิดปัญหาแล้วชาวบ้านก็มารวมตัวประชุมกันครับ
From that evidence, local people got together and tried to discuss about what was going on.
ร่วมกันวิเคราะห์ปัญหาที่เกิดขึ้นว่ามาจากสาเหตุอะไรครับ
Well, we try ourselves to look for the root cause of the problem.
ก็ได้มีมติที่ประชุมครับมาปรึกษาหารือหลายครั้งนะครับกว่าจะได้พื้นป่าตรงที่ทิศเหนือของหมู่บ้านครับ
There were a series of discussion among ourselves, and then we decided to allocate the forest area for the village use.
ก็จะมีทางโรงเรียนและหน่วยงานหลายๆหน่วยงานเข้ามาร่วมมาทำประชาคมมาวิเคราะห์หาครับเหตุการณ์ครับ
There were many agencies, including local school, local government agencies, and others to discuss and then join in the discussion to decide for the potential solution.
ก็มีมติตกลงกันว่าจะปล่อยพื้นที่ที่ตรงทิศเหนือของหมู่บ้านจำนวน185 ไร่ครับ
And then we decided all together through the public discussion to have the forest in the north at the north of the village, around 185 rai, to maintain as the forested area.
ก็มีปัญหาเรื่องด้านการลดจำนวนพื้นที่ที่ตรงที่ปล่อยของหมู่บ้านไปก็จะมีการปรับเปลี่ยนแปลงพื้นที่
Because we lose our rotational farming areas, meaning that we have to adapt the rotation system, meaning the rotation probably need to be shortened down.
พื้นที่ไร่ที่ทำการเกษตรนะครับปรับเปลี่ยนเป็นนาขั้นบันไดเพื่อให้ลดจำนวนพื้นที่การเพาะปลูกเพื่อเพิ่มผลผลิตข้าว
And also we decided to change our agricultural practice by having the rotational rice cultivation. Then we put the rice on terrace.
ก็จะมีการปรับเพื่อการอยู่รอดของชุมชนเองนะครับเราไม่ได้หวังจะให้ช่วยเหลือส่วนอื่นครับเพื่อความอยู่รอดของชุมชนแล้วก็ชาวบ้านได้มีการปรับเพื่อทำเป็นแหล่งอาหารต่างๆรวมในบริเวณนาขั้นบันไดในตรงนั้นด้วยครับ
Well, these kind of changes mainly try to respond to the way how we should survive when we have the climate change impact. And at the same time, we like to ensure that we have enough food, varieties of food, to supply our household consumption.
ก็ในการดำเนินโครงการของนาขั้นบันไดก็มีประสบปัญหาต่างๆนะครับเช่นตอนเราดำเนินการที่แรกนะครับเรื่องการงบประมาณในการปรับพื้นที่นะครับ
When we started applying terracing rice cultivation, we had a problem in terms of the investment because terracing system required quite investment for us.
เพราะในตอนนั้นจะไม่มีเครื่องทุ่นแรงอะไรต่างๆนะครับก็ใช้สองมือของชาวบ้านนะครับใช้จอบครับทำในการปรับพื้นที่นะครับมันก็เป็นไปอย่างยากลำบากนะครับ
We didn't have the heavy mechanic equipment. We just used the normal farming tools to convert the slope area into terrace.
แต่ถึงยากอย่างไรนะครับก็ชาวบ้านเขาก็ต้องทำเพื่อ ความอยู่รอดของตัวเองนะครับแล้วก็การปรับเปลี่ยนชีวิตนะครับไปตามกระแสธรรมชาตินะครับ
Even though it was a hard work for us, but we have to survive. So that's why we have to commit ourselves and put efforts in terms of converting the slope area into terrace.
และพื้นที่ที่เราปล่อยไว้ตรงนั้นตอนที่มันเกิดอุบัติเหตุเกิดดินสไลด์ทับถมลงมานั่นนะตอนนี้นะครับไม่มีการทับถมแล้วครับเพราะว่ามันเป็นต้นไม้ต้นอะไรขึ้นมายึดหน้าดินไว้ทำให้มันมีการชะล้างแล้วก็ไม่เสี่ยงต่ออุทกภัยที่จะสไลด์ลงมาเข้าหมู่บ้านครับ
The land was the land that was the areas that had landslides. Now we maintain that area, and then it has been recovered by natural succession. Now it become forested area, and then the soil erosion become less.
ก็ในตอนนี้ในการบริหารจัดการในพื้นที่ของชุมชนที่เราอนุรักษ์ไว้ก็จะมีการปลูกพืชอาหารของชุมชนเข้าไปเสริมในตรงนี้นะครับเพื่อให้ชุมชนได้มีแหล่งอาหารเพิ่มขึ้นครับ
And also the communities also enrich the forest areas by planting more food species to ensure that we have varieties of food and enough food supply for the whole communities.
ก็จะมีการสนับสนุนจากหน่วยงานต่างๆนะครับในเรื่องของระบบท่อต่างๆก็จะมีอบต.แล้วก็ทางอบจ.นะครับของจังหวัดนะครับ
We got financial support and also the material support from the Tambon administrative organization and as well with the provincial administrative organization supplying water pipeline.
และก็หน่วยงานของมูลนิธิไทยและก็รีคอปนะครับเข้ามาวิจัยนะครับเรื่องของคาร์บอนต่างๆนะครับชาวบ้านไม่รู้หรอกนะครับที่ปล่อยปลาไว้จะมีประโยชน์นะครับ
With the technical support from Rak Thai Foundation and RECOP, we have conducted some kind of study to monitor the carbon within our forest area.
ทั้งนี้ที่ผ่านมาก็ได้รับความร่วมมือจากหน่วยงานให้เป็นอย่างดีนะครับที่มาเข้าร่วมทำกิจกรรมตรงนี้นะครับทำให้ชุมชนได้มีพื้นที่ป่าเกิดขึ้นแล้วก็มีนาขั้นบันไดเกิดขึ้นนะครับในกับบ้านปางยางนะครับ
So far with the support from different agencies, we are very pleased to have the rice on the terrace areas and also we have forest return back from the rotational farming system.
ในปีพ.ศ. 2549 ก็จะมีโครงการขยายผลโครงการหลวงบ้านปางยางเกิดขึ้นนะครับมาอีกหน่วยงานนึงที่เข้ามาร่วมบูรณาการครับ
There were some certain years ago, there was some kind of extension of the success to the neighboring villages.
ก็ได้รับจากสนับสนุนอย่างดีจากภาครัฐนะครับแล้วก็หวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งนะครับเหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นมาต่างๆอย่างเช่นน้ำท่วมในกรุงเทพเนี่ยแล้วก็น้ำป่าไหลหลากอย่างที่เห็นข่าวออกมาจะเป็นประจำนะครับเราไม่ต้องไปโทษคนบนพื้นที่สูงนะครับ
We have hope that the evidence of impact, including like flood in Bangkok and in the plain areas, well, more or less the root cause of problems not come from the hill areas resident.
เพราะเขาทำก็เพื่อความอยู่รอดของเขาเพื่อปากเพื่อท้องแต่บางชุมชนเขาก็มีการปรับตัวอย่างเช่นชุมชนบ้านปางยางของผมนะครับมีการปรับตัวที่คอยกับธรรมชาตินะครับ
Well, I'd like to share with you that in Pangyang community we have adapted, we have changed our agricultural practices in order to respond to the landslides, flood, and other evidence of climate change. ก็ผมก็อยากให้ทางหน่วยงานภาครัฐเนี่ยได้
ช่วยดูแลและส่งเสริมคนที่เขาอยู่ต้นน้ำและคนที่เขาอยู่ทางภูเขาต่างๆซึ่งพื้นที่ของเขาเป็นพื้นที่ที่ลาดชันนะครับซึ่งไม่มีโฉนดอะไรต่างๆที่มารองรับพื้นที่ทำการเกษตรของเขานะครับ
What we would like to request to get more support from the government, more or less, please be aware that we are in the slope areas, in the protected areas. There is no land title, no land rights clearly. So it would be good if the government can provide this kind of tenure clearly.
ก็จากเหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นมาหลายๆต่อหลายครั้งนะครับจากอุทกภัยต่างๆนะครับก็จะมีการประชุมและก็ทักท้วงจากคนที่อยู่ปลายน้ำครับซึ่งกล่าวหาจากกับคนบนพื้นที่สูงนะครับ
Many times when we have the flooding case, most of the people keep blaming to the hill people.
ก็เป็นอีกสิ่งหนึ่งนะครับที่ทำให้ชุมชนของเราเป็นตัวอย่างในการปรับตัวในครั้งนี้นะครับเพิ่งเป็นแรงจูงใจนะครับที่ว่าจะลดข้อกล่าวหาจากคนปลายน้ำนะครับเพื่อเราจะสร้างประโยชน์ให้เขาได้บ้างนะครับ
This kind of complaint and blame then become a pressure for all of us to adjust and then change our way of life in order to prove that okay, hill people also try to minimize the impact.
ก็หวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งนะครับจะได้ลดน้ำที่มันไหลบ่าเข้ามาท่วมพื้นที่ต่างๆของในคนที่เขาอยู่ข้างล่างนะครับ
And hopefully our practice would help reducing flood for the lowland people.
ก็อย่างน้อยๆนะครับก็ทำให้อากาศนะครับหรือว่ามลพิษต่างๆที่ต้นไม้ที่เราอนุรักษ์ไว้ได้ดูดซับเข้าไปบ้างนะครับจากสารท่อไอเสียของรถต่างๆนะครับ
And also we hope that our forest would absorb some of those poisonous gas that emit from the city.
ก็สุดท้ายนี้นะครับก็อยากให้ทางหน่วยงานที่รับผิดชอบนะครับทางกรมป่าไม้นะครับช่วยมาดูแลเรื่องงบประมาณในการปรับตัวต่างๆของแต่ละชุมชนนะครับเขาต้องการในส่วนงบประมาณที่จะมาปรับพื้นที่อะไรต่างๆนะครับเพื่อความอยู่รอดของเขานะครับ
Also, I do hope to get some support, especially the finance support from the Royal Forest Department in terms of financing the way how we have to adapt to the changing of the climate. Well, because we have to survive, but we lack of the capital.
ก็เนื่องจากที่ผ่านมานะครับทางกรมป่าไม้ได้มีโครงการทำฝายชะลอน้ำต่างๆนะครับได้ทุ่มงบประมาณลงไปแล้วส่วนใหญ่นะครับเข้าถึงประชาชนผู้ที่ดำเนินการอย่างกิจกรรมต่างๆไม่เต็ม 100% นะครับ
Well, there was some example when the government support having a number of check dam in the slope areas. Those kind of check dam could not build or could not make their benefits enough to all the communities.
ก็อย่างเช่นทำฝายชะลอน้ำนะครับในรอบปีที่ผ่านมานะครับมันก็จะมีงบประมาณในการทำฝายของกรมป่าไม้อยู่นะครับแล้วก็โครงการปลูกป่านะครับก็ทีนี้นะครับในหมู่บ้านได้มีงบประมาณลงไปนะครับผมดูตัวโครงการแล้วครับเป็นเงินเป็นหลักแสนนะครับซึ่งมาถึงประชาชนได้เป็นหลักพันครับหมื่นไม่ถึงนะครับซ้ำครับ
I know that there was more than 100,000 baht put into the check dam establishment, and I would say that only about 1,000 baht go through community.
ก็อยากให้ทางกรมนะครับช่วยไปดูแลเรื่องนี้ด้วยนะครับประเทศไทยของเราจะได้มีการพัฒนาและก็ยั่งยืนไปกว่านี้นะครับขอบคุณครับ
I would request the government officials here to take a closer look, and then I'm pretty sure that okay, well, with this kind of budget, we can do a lot of work, especially in responding to the community development of Thailand. Thank you very much.
Okay, we heard the realities of adapting to changing conditions generally in sloping lands of Thailand. It reminds me that in it's nearly 40 years ago now, I wrote a book on forested watersheds that made the outrageous claim at that time that the floods that we experience in lowland areas had nothing to do with the kind of flash floods that people experience in sloping areas, and was a very controversial book at the time. So I'm very interested to hear similar thoughts. Now I think we're going to have a break for 20 minutes or so, and then come back for questions and answers. Is that right?
Thank you very much. Shall we have a big hand to the panelists? So we share a lot.